Hello and welcome to Storyboard. I'm Shabani Gharat, your new anchor for the show. Many a times, individual and independent thinking and hence creativity is lost because of this drive to be normal, to fit in and play safe. How to break open from the clutches of the comfort zone. Today's episode comes to you from Kyoorious Designyatra, Goa, where Storyboard editor Anant Rangaswamy caught up with author Dave Trott and Laura Bambach, creative partner Mr. President, to understand why is it important to get into trouble.
Welcome to the show, and to begin with, why do you want people to get into trouble?
Well, you know, it's kind of what's happened to all creativity now. It's not really creativity. Edward de Bono said there are a lot of people calling themselves creative who are actually mere stylists. And if you don't get into trouble, all you can do is restyle the same old thing that's happened before. You do what people are going to approve of. And when I teach students nowadays, they all say to me, are you allowed to do things? Well, no, of course you're not allowed to do it. That's the point. If I get into trouble, then it's going to be controversial, and controversy means people will talk about it, and people talking about it means it'll go viral. That means it's free media. All real creativity has been people getting into trouble, like Noel, the Gallagher brothers, the Beatles, the Stones. The whole point for young people must be to get into trouble, or what are you going to do? Just be like your parents, just do the same old thing they did. Then we never move.
So what's changed? Why are people not willing to get into trouble? You spoke about a time when everybody was willing to get into trouble.
Okay, so my opinion is too many university graduates. Right. Too many people go to university and not enough people go to art school.
Right.
And at university, you learn how to... University is an extension. You do your O-levels, you do your A-levels, you do university, and all the time it's the teacher giving you good marks. And you judge yourself on what kind of marks you get from your teacher. Now, either if you leave school and start on your own, or you go to art school, the point is much more not to do what your teacher tells you, to get into trouble. The point is to ignore other people. It's like in the Marines. They say, you know when you're becoming a Marine when you go beyond what your sergeant will let you do.
Right.
So that's it. When you go beyond what the status quo is, when the existing people will let you do, when you get into trouble and get free media. We always used to do these posters, and the whole point was with these posters, they would be up for a week. We'd do a 13-week run, 1 week at a time, and we'd try to get them banned by Tuesday, because if we could get them banned by Tuesday, we'd drag our feet until they took them down on Thursday. We'd get them in the newspaper, which is free media we hadn't paid for. They'd be discussed on the news programmes, and Saturday the new poster would be up anyway, and we'd try to get that banned. And it's all free media we're not paid for, as you know, as opposed to put it up, nobody objects, nobody complains, and that's the height of your creativity, is nobody objects, nobody complains.
Yeah.
Laura,
yes.
So you've done work that got into trouble, whether it was in Dare UK or now Mr. President, and so you know there's a connection with Dave.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm very passionate about. I mean, it was basically what my talk was about yesterday. Yeah. You know, choosing interesting and not being boring. Like, why on earth would anyone want to make a piece of work that no one noticed or cared about, that was just kind of mediocre? And so whether you sort of push that through getting into trouble and getting banned, or just doing something that's really audacious or whatever, but you have to do work that's noticed. And you're absolutely right, there are too many people on both sides, of both client side and the talent side, just happy to toe the line and just kind of do. I mean, I just don't understand what that job even is, really. Just kind of make stuff that goes somewhere.
You know, both of you are talking about your business.
Yeah.
Now, you need the client also to want to get into trouble. The client also
You
to
do.
be a risk taker.
Yes.
So
Yes.
how do you deal with that?
Well, I think actually Dave had a brilliant chart, which I'm going to use for some of my clients, around the importance of being distinctive, the importance of standing out, and where that actually puts you in terms of the people that you're talking to. We had an interesting question, well, I was given an interesting question yesterday around why it's only sort of booze brands and luxury brands that are making sort of the really interesting work at the moment. And I think part of it is because they're talking
And
to...
the porn sites.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they're talking to people, they're talking to those tastemakers that the clients are more comfortable about making different work for. But, you know, imagine what you could do if you made really differentiating work for the rest of the masses. And that whole area is really unexplored these days. You know, I don't think anyone does it.
Gets me back to you, Dave. You know, yesterday in a conversation you spoke to me about how, you know, 20 years ago people knew how to communicate to the blue-collared world as well as the white-collar world when she talks about the masses. So why is that disappearing, and why is it such a problem?
Well, I think that's what you say. Why mainly premium brands now are doing most of the style advertising is because when you've got a premium brand, that's all there is style. It's a style choice. But when you've got a blue-collar brand, there have to be performance factors to make you choose, because money's much more important. And also, I think blue collar's much freer. People used to be much more interested in songs that in making songs that catch on, jokes that catch on, lines that catch on. So it's free advertising amongst your people, and that's much more of a blue collar thing rather than the sort of cool, postmodern, stylish, art cinema kind of advertising that you have at the moment, which is university graduates talking to other university graduates. Certainly in the UK, people are embarrassed to be seen selling, so they don't want to do anything as crass as selling, so you make the name as tiny as possible and the strapline as tiny as possible, and hopefully don't even mention it, so this piece of art film can get out, and you won't be embarrassed about that in front of your friends, and you won't be embarrassed about being in advertising. Now, I think you're missing part of the fun, which is in the blue collar particularly, the consumers don't mind ads. They know what the ads are for. You're not going to convince people those little films in between the breaks aren't ads. They know they're ads. Do it. Have a bit of fun with me. Turn it into something we can both enjoy, into a line that gets into the language. Most of the good lines you remember started off as advertising lines into the language.
Right.
Gone for a Burton, Lovely Jubbly. They were all advertising lines that people will pick up and use.
Yeah.
That's Andy Harry. I could do dozens of them. People take off the box and use them in their language, because it's a contribution to people's lives instead of pretending we are something that we're not.
Right. Laura, sorry, I'll come back to you. Laura, tell me, is it a problem that the big network agencies have, that they just want to be correct and correct and correct because their clients want to be correct and correct and correct? You worked with Dare, you worked with, say, Barclays, and you did some lovely work for them.
Yes, I mean, I think it comes down to, for me anyway, it comes down to individuals. You know, there are great individuals. That's why, like AMV, although it's a network agency, is still making some decent, you know, advertising. They're still doing good stuff in London. I'd say, you know, amongst all of the big network agencies, they're probably the one that's still trying to do the right thing. But you know, it's the individual talent and it's the individual client coming together to solve a problem, which is selling a product. And I think that gets lost somewhere a lot of the time, partly because procurement plays such a big role now, because timelines and budgets.
Does procurement cause you to lose your creativity?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes.
I'll ask the same question.
I think sometimes very directly, in that you're basically pitching to see who's going to spend the least money, like which agency is going to spend the least money on your product to sell it, which I think is like completely the wrong way around. And you see some, I can't remember the brand, so I'm not going to say anything in case it's wrong, but there's one brand in the UK who's recently run a procurement process, and it was a sealed bid. So whoever put the least amount of money in the thing and sort of handed it back to the brand got the job. And that's not the way that you choose who's going to do your advertising. You choose because of the talent and because of the passion and because you've got some connection between the brand and the agency or the people at the agency, and then you get great work. So,
Dave, you've lived in a pre-procurement world and now you're living in a procurement world. So have you seen the impact of procurement on the lives of communication?
Well, procurement is really brain dead. It's you can get 3 bad ideas for the cost of 1 good idea. Yeah. So to a procurement person, the 3 bad ideas makes more sense. Yeah. They're cheaper. Yeah. So and they don't know how to judge. Something as subjective as good or bad is subjective. So we take that off the table. This is 3 ideas as opposed to 1 idea. We'll take the 3 ideas because in pure terms of accountancy, it makes more sense. Yeah. So in that kind of world, how can there possibly be any creativity? How can there possibly be any quality? It's, you know, three things cost the same as one other thing, so you buy this 3 other without arguing whether they're good.
And
Good or
actually-
bad doesn't come into it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
no,
actually, to your point about the network agencies, sometimes the whole creative part of it is given away for free because of a deal that procurement have done in media. So the creative bit doesn't even come into the decision. It's about who can give me the best cost for my media will then get to make the creative work.
So procurement does have a role to play in limiting creativity. Let's take a short break. Coming up ahead, how are awards working against a healthy creative environment?